Thank you for attending our presentation. My name is James Broxholme and my colleague here is Gerardine Mcrohan, and we are from Kagawa University in Japan. Our presentation topic today is AI in the classroom, teacher perceptions, detection challenges and training needs.
First, we'd like to talk about the increasing role of AI in student writing in academia as a whole. As we all know, AI tools like ChatGPT and Grammarly have become widely available and are being used by more and more students. These tools can be incredibly helpful. They offer instant feedback, correct grammatical errors, and even provide content suggestions. For many students, this means they can improve their writing quickly and independently without waiting for feedback from a teacher. However, there are also some concerns. One major issue is that relying too much on AI might actually reduce students' critical thinking skills and writing skills. If students are constantly depending on AI to generate ideas or fix their mistakes, they may not develop the ability to do these things on their own. Another concern is that AI can blur the lines between authentic student work and machine-generated content. In some cases, it is difficult to tell who really wrote the essay, the student or the AI. This brings us to the bigger issue, academic integrity. With AI writing tools, it is becoming harder to detect plagiarism, and there is a growing concern about how to ensure that student work is truly their own. So while AI definitely has the potential to support learning, it also raises important questions about how we teach, assess, and guide student writing in the future. The issue isn't just being discussed in academic circles anymore. It's reached the mainstream press. More and more news outlets are reporting on how AI is affecting student writing. For example, The Guardian published an article by Wiseman in 2023 titled, "I received a first, but felt tainted." It tells the story of a student who used AI to help with his dissertation. He got top marks, but couldn't shake the feeling that the achievement wasn't fully their own. This article dives into the growing problem of AI cheating at universities. Another example is a 2022 blog post provocatively titled, "What if a machine writes a better essay than a student?" This piece explores the uncomfortable possibility that AI might soon outperform students in certain types of academic writing. And finally, even the New York Times weighed in with an article titled, "Don't ban ChatGPT in schools." Rather than calling for a ban, the author argues that educators need to adapt and think how to use these tools responsively and creatively rather than trying to block them entirely. So clearly, this is no longer a niche academic discussion, but has become something that society is aware of as a whole. Now, let's take a look at some background research that helped shape this study. These recent studies highlight both the opportunities and challenges that AI brings to EFL writing classrooms. First, Marzuki et al. 2023 argue that AI-generated text can challenge student learning outcomes. In particular, there's a concern that students may rely on AI instead of developing their own language skills. Second, Han et al. 2023 found that the teacher's responses to AI use are often inconsistent and may not be effective. Some teachers embrace the technology while others ban it. Without clear guidelines, students receive mixed messages. Third, a study by Wu et al. 2023 shows that while AI tools can help improve the quality of student writing, which is encouraging, however, they also make it harder to assess language proficiency, since it is not always clear how much of the writing was done by the student. Finally, Wang 2023 highlights a more positive angle, finding that a supportive learning environment and positive benefits about AI can actually enhance student motivation. Taken together, these studies show that while AI has real potential in EFL writing, it also raises serious questions about assessment, teaching strategies, and student learning. In the EFL context, AI-generated text raises several important concerns for language teachers. First, there's the issue of language learning versus language production. EFL students need to actively develop their writing skills, but when they rely on AI tools to do the writing for them, there's a risk of passive learning rather than active learning. They may end up with a polished text, but without actually improving their own abilities. Second, we have the question of authenticity and assessment. All AI tools can generate writing that's grammatically flawless, which might sound like a good thing, but it actually makes it harder for teachers to assess a student's true level of proficiency and makes it harder for them to assess the level of their classes. In many cases, it is difficult to tell how much of the work reflects real student effort and how much was produced or heavily edited by AI. And finally, there are ethical and pedagogical dilemmas. Should we try to restrict AI use in the classroom, or should we embrace it and teach students how to use it responsibly? How can we, as educators, balance the advantages of AI with the need to maintain academic integrity and support genuine language development? These are complex questions that don't have easy answers, but they are becoming more and more central to EFL writing instruction. One of the key motivations behind this study is the fact that AI writing detection is still an emerging issue in education, and there's very limited research focused specifically on EFL. How EFL teachers understand, use and recognize the limitations of AI detectors is an emerging area. As AI tools capable of generating human-like text become more widespread, educators are increasingly concerned about academic integrity and the authenticity of student writing. A study by Weber and Wolf et al. 2023 evaluated 12 different AI detection programs. The most effective ones reached about an 80% accuracy rate. But even those tools are not foolproof. There's a 20% error rate. They can be circumvented to produce false positives, which make it very difficult to rely on them completely when assessing student work. Now, when we look at the focus of existing studies, most of them address general academic integrity issues. They don't consider the specific challenges faced in the language learning environments. For example, Wang et al. 2023 looked at how EFL students use AI writing texts. They found that these tools can enhance writing. They also complicate the process of assessing real language proficiency and levels. So in summary, while AI-generated text detection is clearly a growing concern, there's a notable gap in research on how well EFL teachers can actually identify AI-generated content. And this matters because EFL teachers play a critical role in developing students' language skills. If they aren't aware of these tools or they lack proper training, the response to AI use may be inconsistent or ineffective, which can ultimately affect student learning outcomes. This gap is exactly what this research aims to explore. Our study was conducted at Korea University, a public institution in Japan. Like many universities, our English teaching program includes a large number of part-time instructors, and a significant portion of the teaching staff is approaching retirement age. From informal conversations and observations, we've noticed that many of our colleagues, despite their extensive teaching experience, may not be fully up to date with recent developments in AI-generated text. In fact, several teachers have confidently stated that they can easily identify AI-written assignments. Our motivation for this study was to challenge that assumption and produce evidence-based insights. We wanted to support our teaching community by showing that AI-generated writing has evolved to a level where it's no longer easy to distinguish from student-produced work, especially in the EFL context. Next, let me briefly explain the methodology we use for this research. Task 1 involved analysing 5 different passages. 3 were generated by AI and 2 were written by students. The goal here was to see how well teachers could identify which texts were written by AI and which were written by humans. The AI-generated text included typical Japanese learner errors. Then for task 2, we wanted to understand how familiar people are with AI detection tools. So we created a short questionnaire to gather some quick insights into their awareness and understanding of these tools. In this study, we set out to explore 3 main questions. First, how well can EFL teachers identify AI-generated text? Second, we asked whether variables such as age and teaching experience influence a teacher's ability to identify AI-generated text or affect their opinions regarding its use in the classroom. Finally, we explored teachers' awareness of AI detection software. Given the grown reliance on these tools in academic settings, we were interested in how familiar our participants were with their use, accuracy, and limitations. To conduct this research, we collected data over a 2-month period. Because our participants had varying levels of digital literacy, we used multiple formats to distribute this survey: Google Docs, printed paper forms, and email. This approach helped ensure that all respondents, regardless of their comfort with technology, could participate. Once the data was collected, we tabulated the responses and analysing them using a one-way ANOVA. This allowed us to examine whether there were any statistically significant differences in participant responses across the different groups we were studying.
Okay, so the participants were a mixture of university level teachers from 3 universities, 1 public, which was ours in Kagawa, and 2 private universities in West Japan. The teachers were from a range of backgrounds, age, experience, including part-time teachers and full-time teachers, with a range of different nationalities. So we initially surveyed these teachers to find out if they could correctly identify which texts were produced by AI and which were not. 10 were native English speakers and 11 were non-native. We eliminated 2 respondents due to their non-committal answers, i.e. they said the text compositions could be either way. So based on this, we tried to establish which variables were influential in affecting teachers' ability to successfully recognise AI-generated text. Some of the findings we uncovered were interesting and surprising, some of which we have no explanations to support them. Looking at the demographics of the teachers we interviewed, 10 native English speakers were from countries such as America, Canada, UK, Australia, etc. And 11 were non-native English speakers. Of course, Japanese English teachers, but also other nationalities such as French, Spanish, and Filipino speakers. We gathered the data using a Likert scale, collecting quite specific details. However, for the purposes of the statistical analysis and a small sample size, we tried to merge the variables into 2 clear, distinct categories. In terms of age, there was a wide range in ages, but we separated them into those under 50 and those over 50, which equated to about a 50-50 split. The participants were also separated by self-reported gender. 60% claimed to identify as male and nearly 40% as female. We also recorded the number of years experience each teacher had, and again separated this into those with under 20 years teaching experience and those with over 20 years experience. Again, as you can see, it's about a 50-50 split. Finally, we separated the teachers by self-reported computer literacy. There's no hard science behind this, and it was only self-reported. but we decided to primitively analyse this variable. About 60% claimed to have good or excellent computer skills, with about 40% claiming to have poor or adequate skills. We then worked out the average accuracy rate as a whole before splitting into the variables. So as you can see here, the average mean score we calculated was 2.8 out of 5. This doesn't appear too bad, but only 14% perfectly identified exactly with a 100% rate. What we did next was analyse the variables using a one-way ANOVA calculation. None of the findings were scientifically significant. However, we did discover some interesting variances between the groups that we analysed. First of all, we discovered that non-native English teachers had a better mean score than native English teachers. This equated to the non-native English teachers achieving a mean score of 3.2 compared to 2.6 for native English teachers. This equates to about a 20% better accuracy rating for the non-native English teachers. The next variable we investigated was by self-reported gender. As you can see here, those who identified as female got an accuracy rate of 3.38 compared to those who identified as male with a 2.46. This equates to over 30% better accuracy rate for those who identified as female in recognising the AI generated text. The next variable we looked at was age. This variable didn't identify any major differences, but as you can see, the under 50s were 7% better at identifying the AI composed text. As you can see here, we have teaching experience. So those with less than 20 years teaching experience had a better accuracy rate compared to their counterparts. As you can see here, it's about a 13% better accuracy rate for those with under 20 years experience. Finally, those with better self-reported IT skills had about a 10% better accuracy rate. Again, this is not scientifically significant. We also asked the teachers about their awareness of AI detection tools. We discovered that there was a low awareness of the AI detection software. In fact, only 3 teachers had any awareness of the software. Among those who were aware of the tools available, most believed them to be more accurate than they actually are, and only 1 teacher questioned the detection accuracy of these tools. So let's recap our key findings. We discovered an average identification rate of the AI text as 14% overall, despite previous comments about it being easy to identify. Those who identified as female outperformed those who identified as males by over 30%. We're not sure why this may be. Non-native English teachers outperformed native English teachers. We're not sure why this could be, but it could be due to the non-native English teachers. So it could be due to native English teachers often going on a gut feeling and not noticing the subtle language differences and choices, whereas in contrast, the non-native English teachers may be better equipped at noticing these nuances in vocabulary and syntax choices. Of the other 3 variables we analysed, we think the most interesting finding was that teachers with less experience outperformed those with more. This correlates with age, as young teachers had less experience. We're not sure why this is the case. Surprisingly, computer skills didn't have as much of an impact as we predicted. This study, although small in scope, highlights the importance of not relying on intuition to detect AI in students' writing. We also noticed that there was a belief that the detection tools are more accurate than they actually are, thus highlighting a potential risk in over-reliance. The findings also identified the importance of improving AI literacy in academia and teachers. Due to the low awareness of AI detection software and the beliefs that these tools were more reliable than they are, we believe that this identifies a big need for training staff on these issues, particularly for part-time teachers who are not as engaged in academic activities and societies and may lack an awareness of up-and-coming trends in education and beyond. In conclusion, this study clearly illustrates the need for professional development of teachers, especially those not engaged in academic societies and research. In particular, teachers need help in integrating AI into their EFL teaching. Our further research on this topic will focus on teacher attitudes to AI in the EFL classroom and AI in pedagogy as a whole. Our key takeaway from this study is that teachers must adapt to the use of AI in students' writing and help them to effectively utilize AI to improve their language acquisition. Finally, it is vital for teachers and students to develop ways to ethically use AI in the classroom. We can no longer ignore AI as educators when we have a responsibility to help students learn how to use this technology in an effective but ethical manner, a skill that they can carry over into their future careers. That's the end of our presentation, and thank you for listening to our presentation today.